9:42 exactly. We're now going to be talking with Executive Manager Strategy and Communication at Land Bank, and that is you, Sydney Soundy. Let me start off with my introduction. Just over 2 years after defaulting on its debt obligations, the Land Bank is once again lending, with the state-owned bank relaunching a blended finance scheme on Monday, which I presume is Monday past, which is putting 1.95 billion rand towards turning emerging farmers into commercial ones over the next 3 years. A very good morning to you. Welcome to the program. Thank you for your time. And is it a good idea to go ahead with the scheme in light of the fact that just 2 years ago there was the default on your debt obligations?
Good morning, Judy, and good morning to your viewers. Land Bank has been in default, as you've observed, since April of 2020 with our lenders. We've made progress to resolve those issues, and we expect to sign a liability solution in due course. And so as a result, we have a good opportunity at this point to start rebuilding, in particular, the re-establishment of the development and transformation portfolio in the agricultural sector. And the agreement with the department is a good basis through which to do this, because the blended financing approach will allow us to provide affordable lending, but also reduce the risk that the new entrants in the market generally face.
Around the focus on supporting historically disadvantaged farmers, and obviously this scheme of yours, which undoubtedly lots of factors has gone in to try and make it as flop proof as possible. It is going to be serving as a flagship project that will reduce the risk of default by targeting farmers already receiving grants. Explain that in more detail, please.
Yeah, so essentially how the scheme will work is that it will look not only at new entrants, but it will also assist those who are already operating in the sector to essentially grow their businesses, to support them into getting much more productive than perhaps they have been at this stage because of lack of funding. So it is aimed at both new entrants but existing ones. And as you rightfully indicated, it is dealing with small and medium scale black farmers and or producers. So that's where the target is. And as you've indicated, we in the current financial year, which ends end of March of 2023, there's 325 million of grants that we need to deploy into this program, which has been provided by the department.
Okay, I understand that the funds from the scheme can be used for development of existing farms, acquisitions and production expansion for farmers who qualify. I'd like to look at the qualifying criteria. I'm also going to ask you to tell us about default or collateral. You know, what do you take in place of, because that's a lot of money you're investing, 325 million rands from the department, and the department being Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development. So you need to mitigate against a failure of the scheme.
Yes, that's true. So one of the most important thing to comprehend in as far as this sector is concerned is that without appropriate comprehensive support, financing on its own will not be able to resolve the potential failures of these new entrants and or existing but growing small and medium scale farmers. Because the challenge has largely been, in the first instance, lack of equity to contribute into transactions to make them less in terms of gearing ratio. So in other words, not have transactions that have a lot of debt in them. And you get to a stage where the repayment of these facilities is quite heavy because of that. So there's the equity part that you need to address. And this blended finance approach is allowing for the grant to do that. So the grant is treated as an equity contribution by the borrower. Then in terms of other challenges that this sector has faced, like you've indicated, they generally do not have property or net assets to provide as security or collateral. So one of the things that we're looking at doing is to take proceeds of harvests as part of managing that particular risk. So in other words, take harvests as security. But to the extent that we have reduced the level of debt, it means then that the collateral requirements are also somewhat reduced, because instead of, let's just give you an example. Let's just say a client needed to have funding of 10 million in total. Instead of collateral to the value of 10 million, it is going to be such that only the loan component of that 10 million, which in this example could be 5 million, and not the entire 10 million. So essentially, the degree to which collateral is required also reduces. And so to that extent, we address both the equity issues as well as the collateral issues as part of this funding structure.
Sounds very lucrative indeed. People listening to us and watching us this morning would realize that this is a wonderful, this is truly a wonderful scheme to get involved in. But what about criteria to qualify? Because here I'm sitting and thinking, wow, what a brilliant opportunity. I don't have to put up any collateral. Do I need to have past experience as far as agriculture is concerned? And when, how do I go about sourcing arable farmland so that I can almost not necessarily guarantee, but I can be confident in the fact that if I then start a farm or some sort of, be it, what do they call this? Livestock farming or whatever form farming I believe is lucrative and feasible. How do I go about forming this partnership with you? Because then it sounds too good to be true. Any Tom, Dick, and Harry can jump on board. So, what's your criteria for qualification?
Yeah, maybe let's dispel the too good to be true aspects, and also the point you're making that no collateral is required. Just to correct, collateral will still be required. What I was indicating is that different forms of collateral will also be considered, and that the extent of the collateral that will be required, given the level of the debt versus the grant, is
I
also a
understood.
consideration.
I understood that part. I understood that
Okay.
part clearly. But I'm just wondering for someone like me thinking, gee whiz, that's a wonderful opportunity. I could go
Yes.
into farming and I could be fully subsidized into the scheme. And, if I work hard enough and have the right people on board, this could be a very lucrative venture both ways, both for you and both for me. Obviously for
Yes.
the land bank and for myself. It's a win-win situation.
Yes. So maybe let me take it from the criteria perspective in order to also address this lucrativeness and the aspect of new entrants wanting to get it and think that it's easy to get funding and therefore they can get into the agricultural sector. So starting with the requirements or the qualifications, this is intended for Black agri entrepreneurs, and by Black we mean Black as in the South African context, inclusive of Indians and Coloureds, and these are supposed to be South African, so they must be South African citizens who are operating in the agriculture space or who will operate in the agricultural space. There's also an element, and this will deal with that question you've raised, an element where we are encouraging in instances where there are startups and they have opportunities to partner in a joint venture with those who are experienced. That we encourage that in terms of that ownership structure, we should have at least between 26% and 40% of non-blacks in that joint venture who may have the experience and the expertise to be able to support the black partner. So, but the transaction in terms of that ownership structure must have a 60% black ownership if it is in a joint venture arrangement. Other than that, if it is just a person, a historically disadvantaged person in the form of a black person, those would also qualify. And so there is a benefit criteria assessment that we do or undertake when we look at these transactions so that we can deal with aspects such as risk and the like.
Okay, we're running out of time. Can I just put my final
Okay.
question to you? A short response, please, if you don't mind. Can I
No
approach
problem.
you without any previous experience whatsoever as far as agriculture is concerned? As long as I come with a partner who's got the experience, can I come to you without any capital and no experience whatsoever? Would you still consider me if I have the right partner in place?
Yeah, we need a stake in the ground. So we'll also need you to have a contribution into the transaction. And indeed, if you are fully committed and you have a joint venture that collectively, together with yourself, has sufficient capability and know-how to undertake that enterprise, that will be considered, because the big issue here is to ensure that there are no failures. And so we need to cover for that risk, not only for ourselves, but also for the entrant, so that the technical expertise, the comprehensive support that is required is in place to support that entrant.
Sydney Soundy, Executive Manager, Strategy and Communication at Land Bank. Thank you indeed for talking to us. All the best. Who knows? I might just apply for that. Go well. Have a wonderful week ahead of you.
Thank you.
It
Okay,
is
cheers.
It is exactly 9:55 a.m. News and Views. We're wrapping up with our final interview for the morning. Our guest is Shad Thomas. He is an organized crime expert, and we're going to talk to him regarding the ongoing high level of kidnappings in our country. Please stand by.